All right, welcome everybody to a brand new day. This will be the first Under the Dome podcast where the Saints have a head coach not named Sean Payton. So a
Weird.
different world. I know it's going to be a different world. It's going to be very strange on game day. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with Sean Williams and Bob Rose. And I know Bob is going to run out of here before 8:30 because he is going to make a sneak peek appearance at it's a rival podcast, but there are friends. Cat Chronicles. If it wasn't for Cat Chronicles, we probably wouldn't be here tormenting you right now. So we always take time out to help these guys, and whenever they ask us to make an appearance, one of us shows up on their show. So I know Bob's going to be on tonight. So Bob, Sean, not much news come out, yesterday about the Saints. I mean, that's the bad part about, Super Bowl week. Nothing much happens. I mean, you had the Pro Bowl Sunday, which nobody watched. Evidently, nobody tackles in the game. The only person did any kind of hitting in that in Las Vegas apparently was Alvin Kamara and his crew. So before we go into our new head coach, real quick, have you guys read the police report? Have you read what Alvin Kamara did? Yeah. Thoughts on this, Bob? You first.
There's still going to be a lot more information that comes out, or at least should be a lot more information that comes out. Because the basic police report has the accuser, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
I don't think he does either.
Yeah, right. Kind of talking a little bit of shit to Kamara and the crew that was with him, 9 or 10 guys. Went to step on the elevator with them. Alvin reached out and stopped the man from getting on the elevator. With his hand, put his hand on his chest. The man hit Alvin's arm aside, and then all of a sudden got jumped. Guys, it just doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't.
Well, if I understand correctly, there's supposed to be video of the entire thing.
That's what they keep saying, and the verbal reports I've heard about the video, which I haven't seen, corroborates most of this guy's story, at least that has been leaked out to the public, which is basically that when the attack started, 2 or 3 members of Kamara's crew, posse, whatever you want to call them, hangers on, jumped
circle of idiots
into the ground, and then Kamara got involved. Some reports you hear have Alvin hitting the guy a couple of times. Other reports have the guy kicking, or Alvin kicking the guy a couple of times. Either way, he got the hell beat out of him. Went to the hospital. The hospital reported the injuries to the police. Police report was taken. Alvin was interviewed, I believe, right after the Pro Bowl, where he surrendered himself into custody, was released on bail, $5,000 bond. A preliminary hearing that had been scheduled for Tuesday afternoon was pushed back tentatively to March 8th. That's what I know right now.
Okay, Sean, your take. And
to be perfectly honest, I want to wait until all the details come out. Certainly my knee-jerk reaction that I put in our group chat, he's an idiot. If all of this is true, he's an idiot. The most important, essential part of being a professional football player is that first word. You have to be a professional.
Yeah, even if they ask you where your shine box is, you still have to be professional. Go home, go get your shine box.
Because you have an organization depending on you. You have teammates depending on you. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard. You should have to.
Yeah.
But more and more now, this is becoming more acceptable behavior, which is sad.
Well, First off, I have to play this because we have to deal with this issue now. Right after they make the big announcement that we have a new head coach, and I know exactly. I don't have to see the video to know exactly how this probably went down, based off of Kamara's own confession. And to me, the big mistake he made in this confession was he admitted punching this guy when he thought he was running away.
Yeah.
So no longer is this going to be a he said, she said, he took this first swing, I responded. You've just admitted that you punched this guy when you saw him trying to run away.
There's no way that you can even remotely attempt to use self-defense now.
No. I mean, I know this based on Alvin Kamara's thing. The guy said some crap about the girls that were with him. One of them was Alvin's girlfriend. And what you would think would be a diffusing of the situation, the way that an entourage and athletes handle it. Put your hand on the guy's chest. You're not riding this elevator with us. You stay your ass out of here. We're getting away. And this dude immediately, because I've seen it happen, immediately takes a swing and knocks the hand away. Like, don't put your hand on me. Well, once you do that, it's going down. Someone's swinging. So to that point, I'm thinking, based on the two stories, this guy fucked around and found out, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, but Kamara's version telling me, okay, then we thought the guy was trying to run away, and I took a couple swings at him because he was trying to run away. No, that's not what. This is not the streets. This is not how you handle a situation like that. Once the guy is sufficiently, you think he's trying to get away from you, get your ass on the elevator, get the hell out of there. So as a result, the typical. Now, Vegas has all kinds of another legal issues going on. Vegas has their own issues. This probably never goes to trial. This probably, lawyers are getting involved. This will probably be a settlement that he doesn't serve any time. However, the league has specific rules when it comes to this, and the maximum suspension is 6 games. So we have another Onyemata situation to start the 2023 season. That is bad enough. Now, it could be like Tyreek Hill, who only gets 2 games. Who knows? But
Tyreek Hill didn't play in New Orleans.
Right.
Exactly.
So let's assume it's going to be a 6-game suspension. You're going into the 2023 season with a new quarterback, probably. Because I'm not assuming Jameis Winston comes back. Can't assume anything. So, you have questions at quarterback. Now you have questions at running back, your most reliable weapon. They're not trading him. They're not cutting him. No matter what you hear on that stuff, you can't. He's got a cap figure of $9 million if you trade or cut him, which is you could probably eat that, but why go to
Why would you want to?
You have nothing. And he'll end up on the Falcons or the Buccaneers or some team or the Panthers, some team where you have to play him. He's not going to get kicked out of the league. Somebody will sign him because they signed Kareem Hunt, who did a hell of a lot worse. So, the issue for me is now you have to address the running back position. Now running back is an important move. Whether you take one in free agency or you take one in the draft, you need another running back because you cannot rely on Mark Ingram to carry you 6 games.
No.
And you still have the needs at wide receiver. You don't know what the status will be of Michael Thomas. We're assuming he's coming back healthy. So it's a lot of stuff for a brand new coach to deal with. So my brother's saying maybe 6 to 8 games. The policy is 6 games. That's the NFL discipline policy, 6 games.
And Goodell will tack on 2 more just because it's New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, Sean Payton's not there anymore. So, I don't know if he'll take a softer stance towards us.
I doubt that. we're not the flashy big market team. He could care less about New Orleans.
No, but it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. Before you have to go, Bob, I want to get your thoughts on, first off, Dennis Allen and the way they went about hiring him. How do you feel about the hire? And secondly, how do you feel about the process that they used to make that decision?
I'll actually start with the process. I thought the Saints handled it the right way. I believe that Dennis Allen was their top candidate all along. And then it was basically Allen's job to lose, whether he blew the interview, didn't show as much interest as what the franchise had hoped, something like that. And at the same time, I also really, really liked every single candidate they interviewed. Darren Reese, the special teams coach, surprised me a little bit. But I love Glenn. I love Bieniemy. I love Flores. I love Peterson. And Peterson was taken off of the table this past weekend. Jacksonville snapped him up. But yeah, I loved all those interviews. I don't really think they could have gone wrong with any of them. But like I said, I think they had Allen identified as their top candidate the whole time. And Mickey Loomis really didn't keep this secretive. He lined out exactly what they were looking for in the next head coach, and Allen was the only one to check off every single box. And having said that, I personally really like Dennis Allen as a coach. I think he's going to do a fine job. If as long as the situation and circumstances don't crumble around him. The rest of you Saints players, try to keep out of trouble this week, this summer.
God. Where's the meme of the dude standing outside the house with his head up smoking, like, oh Lord, it never ends. We never have an uninteresting off season with the Saints.
Not at all.
But they crammed it all into one weekend this time.
Hey, you know what? If that's the case and the rest of the off season is relatively quiet as far as bad news goes, I'll take it. But I think Allen learned a lot in his first stint, with the dysfunctional Oakland Raiders, and that's what people are going to point to. Frankly, my fingers are cramped and my voice is hoarse from telling people all for the last 2 weeks. You can ignore Allen's 8-28 record with the Raiders because they're the Raiders. Mike Shanahan was 8-12 in his first stint with Al Davis's LA Raiders. Shanahan did pretty okay for himself.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll barely had a winning record and only had 2 winning seasons in 5 years with the combination Jets and Patriots. Carroll's done pretty okay for himself. And the best example I could give is Bill Belichick, 5 years with the Cleveland Browns. 1 winning season, 36-44 record. What are there are 2 variables, consistent variables with Allen, Shanahan, Belichick, Carroll. Bad franchises, really bad franchises, because the Patriots were a mess back then. People forget. Bad franchises and young guys given their first real opportunity as a head coach. Dennis Allen is an extremely smart guy, and he's an extremely smart football person. Don't think for 1 second he hadn't learned.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. Sean, your thoughts on the hiring and the process that it took to make this decision? I'm just going to throw one thing out. Some people felt it was a sham because Allen was pretty much guaranteed the job. Do you feel it was a sham, or did you like the process?
I wouldn't use the word sham at all. You have to do your due diligence, and you would be doing a disservice to the franchise and the team if you didn't explore more than one option. Okay, if Dennis Allen is your de facto choice, fine. Let's check others and see if there's somebody that wows us even more.
Right.
But I agree completely with what Bob said about Allen being the one all along.
I felt, and I said it from on this show and elsewhere from the beginning, it was Allen's job to lose.
Yes.
But the process was not a sham. They did not go through token interviews of, say, black head coaches or just token interviews in general. I think they really opened it up to the possibility of other coaches coming in. And listen, this is like Bob said, these are the things that we expect as a from a head coach for this organization. Let's see if you meet these criteria. And Allen did because of Allen's track record with the Saints.
Yes.
Last night I watched the Super Bowl, the Saints Super Bowl, because it was the 12th anniversary. And Dennis Allen was the secondary coach there. That was Dennis Allen's team that, Dennis Allen's secondary that picked off Brett Favre, picked off Peyton Manning.
I didn't
You know,
realize that.
yeah, he was secondary coach from 2009 to 2011. He went to become the Raiders head coach in 2012. He lasted 2 seasons with the Raiders. After 2014, he was a free agent again. 2015, he becomes a Saints assistant defensive coach because by this point, the Rob Ryan experiment was crashing. It was
Badly.
bouncing out. Yeah, it was careening all over the place. Um, we had the great season in 2013, 2014. We're starting to have problems. 2015 is Junior Gillette, Brandon Browner, that whole mess. Um, in fact, some people are sharing the meme that not the meme, but the video of Allen jumping all over Brandon Browner's ass for a stupid thing he did, getting another penalty. So Allen, by that point, people were like, okay, in 2015, 2014, they even felt this way. But in 2015, they said, okay, Rob Ryan's not long for this. That they just hired his replacement in 2015. And sure enough, Ryan is fired midway through the 2015 season. 2016, Allen's first year as defensive coordinator. 2017, we suddenly see the shift. After the 0-2 start, the defense becomes a lot better. The team becomes a lot better. Granted, 17 draft class really had an impact, but the defense has gotten progressively better each season he's been there. So
Yes.
he has shown growth as a coach. He has shown growth getting the respect of that locker room. That's the other thing people fail to remember is that the players all were for Dennis Allen to be the head coach.
And that matters.
Yeah, it wasn't a knock on the other coaches. They probably would be rallying behind those coaches too. But Loomis knew, talking to Allen, that you really have this locker room behind you. I don't have to worry about locker room drama. You learn from Sean Payton that you need to have a certain kind of locker room with certain kind of leaders to win in this league. And that's what they've got, and that's what Allen will encourage. So
Yes.
yeah, I was surprised at how well some of the like I mentioned to you guys off the air. Bob mentioned the special teams coach. I mentioned, Aaron Glenn, whom I thought we actually upgraded this offseason as with the secondary, getting Chris Richard or Chris Richard. I can't say Chris Richard because now I got Devil Woman playing in my head. I mean, but I'll say Chris Richard because we're in South Louisiana.
Yeah.
But you saw an improvement in the secondary with him as secondary coach. But Glenn Allen, just combining names now. Excuse me. Aaron Glenn really impressed the Saints front office with his interview. I think Eric Bieniemy impressed the Saints with his interview, but he did not meet what the criteria they were looking for this team at this time. This is not the 2000 Saints trying to rebuild after the Mike Ditka era. This is not the 2006 Saints trying to rebuild after Katrina, after Jim Haslett. This is a team this is a transition from one good team and a great coach to another good coach, hopefully a great coach with a good team. This team
I don't
isn't.
think people are giving enough credit for just exactly how talented this team still is.
No, they don't, because all they can think about is the injury. All they
This
can
is
think about
a very talented team just without a quarterback.
Yes, they are. They're a talented team without a quarterback and without really a second receiver. You've got Michael Thomas. You haven't had him. You had him for about a half a year last year because he only played a handful of games last year. And you didn't have him at all this year. So people have kind of pretty much have forgotten how good Thomas was in this offense. Granted, Drew Brees just throwing him the ball. But yeah, you look at this offensive line, people are like, oh, the offensive line's a mess. Is it though? Because you didn't have Ryan Ramczyk all season, or practically all season, it seemed. Armstead was in and out of the lineup. Pete was gone from the beginning of the season. When we got Eric McCoy back after about 4 games, so you never had a complete offensive line. I think that people just look at this team and think about, okay, so you got Hurst at tackle, you got Throckmorton in there,
And those two guys did not play poorly this year.
No, they didn't, but
they were not Ramczyk or Armstead, but
yeah, then you're thinking, okay, I got Callaway and Harris as my receivers. We need to upgrade across the board. We need to get all new players, blow up the roster, get all new players. And I think that's what people forget. They forget how good this team was. That it won 48, 56 games over the past 4 years. So it was a transition year. I think we're going to have another transition year. But I don't think we're going to go back to a bad team. I think as long as you continue to bring in the kind of players they brought in 2017, as long as you bring in the kind of leaders that you had, this team can win. This team can win. And really, just a few injuries or a few plays, you probably are in the playoffs. And judging by the way this playoffs this season went, you probably win a couple playoff games. I certainly, none of the home field, none of the teams that had the number 1 seed won. They lost in the divisional round. Teams that were on the road won all these games until you got to the Rams game, which was kind of like a road game. But yeah, the team that was on the road seemed to win all those playoff games. Look at the path Cincinnati took. So you're really not that far away. You're a quarterback. If you can get a quarterback and receiver combo like Cincinnati has, which you won't, but I mean, you get a quarterback receiver combo like that, how much better do you think the Saints would be? They'd have a better defense, so there's no comeback. So that's how close you are. You're not talking about rebuilding this entire offense.
And to be honest, you bring in a Bieniemy, Leftwich, they're going to want to put their own stamp on this team.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is by drafting players. And the way to get draft picks is to sell off all your present talent. You're looking at the likelihood of losing players like a Kamara, a Thomas, a Cam Jordan, a Lattimore.
Well, but unfortunately, though, you really can't because the salary cap hits you would take because Lattimore and Ramczyk just signed their contracts. Thomas, you've restructured his deal a couple of times. So, you're talking about guys that are really unmovable because you can't afford the cap hit. So basically, I think the way you build this team, I think the way Allen needs to build this team right now is get some quality possession receivers, one guy with some speed, but get some quality possession receivers that can run block. Um, build up your offensive line, the weaknesses that you may have, whether that's Cesar Ruiz or Andres Pete or both, and get some running backs and get a game manager as a quarterback for right now who can
Sure.
take the occasional deep shots. But
Yeah.
not, you know,
Look at how successful Mac Jones was in New England.
Mac Jones for all the knocks, Ryan Tannehill. I mean, the Titans got back to the playoffs, and really, I mean, Tannehill had a meltdown in that game against the Bengals,
Yeah.
but you know, he did get into the playoffs, and they're the number one seed.
Yeah.
You can win with a game manager right now while you search for that next quarterback. So that leads my next question, and we've talked a little bit about it on a couple of shows, and I still want to bring it up because it's the most important one. What do you do at quarterback? What do you see the Saints doing?
That is a hard one. I really do. I don't know. You have to decide whether or not you're going to try to re-up with Jameis first. You probably are going to see Ian Book relegated.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Taysom's not going anywhere. But I think that you should probably entertain the thought of bringing in somebody.
Okay, so I'll ask this in two-part question then. If you bring in Jameis or bring back Jameis, how long do you? What kind of deal do you give him? How long of a contract do you give him?
Probably 2 years, no more than 3,
Okay.
and load it with incentives like don't throw interceptions, throw more touchdowns, and stuff like that. But even still, if you do keep Jameis with that 2 or 3 year window, that means that you have to start the process of looking for the next one now.
Well, I think they're always looking for the next one. Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, Jameis is off the board. Jameis is gone. He
Okay.
signs with another team. He signs with Pittsburgh. He signs with Tampa again. Just for the sake of argument, what do you do from there? Where do you go?
I think you start looking, and the first example that comes to my head is someone like Garoppolo, which I personally do not want to bring in Garoppolo, but someone whose successor has already been drafted and is in house, somebody that's not happy where they are, maybe, and is looking to relocate. But
Okay.
you have to pick the right guy, not just somebody that's going to come in here and half-ass it and flounder.
Mm-hmm. No, and I totally get that. And I think the Saints, in my world, the Saints are obligated to reach out to the Seahawks and the Panthers. Not the Panthers, I'm sorry, the Packers and the 49ers. Do your due diligence, just like you did with the coaching staff. Find out what these teams are looking for in exchange for their quarterbacks. Okay, and you weigh it out. You do just like you did with the coaches. Here's all the things I think we can do with our draft picks. Here's all the things I think we can do if we make the move to go get one of these guys. And Winston is still a possibility, but let's again assume he's gone. He goes to somebody else, and they don't even have the opportunity. I think then after those 3, you start looking. Then you go almost to the secondary market. Do the Vikings want to part with Kirk Cousins? Again, it's just like the interview with the guy ended up being the Jaguars head coach, the ex Eagles head coach,
Peterson.
Doug Peterson. I was not a fan of Doug Peterson. I did not want to get Doug Peterson. Um, so just because I thought he was a terrible clock manager, I thought he caught lightning in a bottle his 1 year with the Eagles with Frank Reich as his offensive coordinator. Just getting to the Super Bowl, they got hot at the right time. Um, Nick Foles wasn't exposed yet. He was still Big Dick Nick. I mean, that's so that I did not want to see Doug Peterson here. So, but I do think you have to explore all those options. Even God, I would hate to have this guy here, but a Mitchell Trubisky. You just start looking at these guys. You start
But see, that to me, that would be the very last thing that you needed to do. You can't resurrect. You don't have the time
no,
and the means here right now to try to resurrect a career.
I'm talking about in terms of if Winston's off the board and you can't, those other teams you can't afford a guy. You're still looking for some quarterback, a veteran quarterback. Do you take a shot with him and try and turn him into a game manager? I don't know. I wouldn't want him, but I mean, it's an option. Okay. Yeah, I can see that, but anyway, Donald Woods asked, "What's going on with Pete Carmichael?" That was a conversation I was hoping to have with Bob when he was still on, but I don't know if he'll make it back tonight. Pete Carmichael. This is the second question we have to address, because I think the answer to the first question is you have to explore all options at quarterback, including the draft.
And see, to me, not to interrupt you, but to me, at this point in time, the draft is not an option because there's not a good enough quarterback to make your next franchise guy.
No, I
get that. In this draft or probably even the next.
Well, I don't know. It depends on which quarterback ends up with what franchise. I mean, Sam Darnold got ruined because he went to the Jets, and he's still showing evidence of being a ruined quarterback in Tampa and in Carolina.
Well, I think what attributes to that is the fact that he was overrated coming out. I never thought he was that good. The most important thing on his pedigree coming into the draft was 3 letters: USC.
I get that. I get it. But he wasn't on paper. He had everything you're looking for in a quarterback: size, arm strength, accuracy, poise. But he went to a bad team, which a lot of first overall picks or high draft picks go to bad teams and get ruined. You're seeing Matthew Stafford with the Rams. Granted, it's much later, and he's having a Jim Everett kind of resurrection. But if Matthew Stafford probably goes to a much better team, he has a few Super Bowls in his trophy case.
Yes.
So it's hard for me to be absolutely critical of a pick because Sam Darnold is not a Achilles Smith, a Ryan Leaf. Those guys were terrible draft picks. Those guys are train wrecks coming into the league. I just think that he's on that edge.
Yeah.
Where if he would have gone to the right team, he probably becomes a decent quarterback. Maybe not a franchise quarterback, but a decent quarterback a Ryan Tannehill kind of quarterback who could probably manage the game for you and make some plays. But he goes to the Jets. They make him the top draft pick, and he gets destroyed. And you see that getting played out again with Zach Wilson. The same thing is happening to Zach Wilson.
Now,
And
don't misunderstand me. I don't think that Darnold was the worst, but
no,
I think he was very much overdrafted.
Yeah, I can see that, and I can agree with that to an extent. And that'll happen again this year.
That it
You'll get,
happens every year. There
you'll
is
get
no
guys.
position on the field that people reach for more than quarterbacks, because they all think that they're going to find that Tom Brady.
Well, and it's also the most difficult position to evaluate.
Yeah,
It's the most difficult position to evaluate because you're trying to find a guy who not only has the physical gifts, but also has the football IQ coupled with that intangible, that
yeah,
ability to stay calm and do your job when the pressure is the greatest.
yes,
And that's the one thing that no one has been able to measure yet.
yeah,
Drew Brees Drew Brees goes in the second round because they looked at the physical stuff and didn't measure that. Tom Brady goes in the sixth round because they again went to Michigan, looked at the physical characteristics. He's slow, he's skinny, doesn't look like much of an athlete, but they couldn't measure how he performed when it became crunch time.
yeah,
And unless he's playing the Saints, uh, at crunch time, he was at his best. Um, so, that's the part that everyone gets wrong. And you're finding out what makes Sam Donald bad is his inability to handle crunch time.
yeah,
It's same with Mark Sanchez, same with Zach Wilson right now. All these guys with the Jets that they've been looking for the next Namath forever because Namath was that guy who was at his best when you needed him the most
yeah,
before his body gave out. But those guys, Montana, Marino, that's what makes them great. So, but all that aside, we'll push all that aside right now because we don't know where that guy is.
no,
This to me is the most important decision that the Saints are going to have to make. Who is going to be the offensive coordinator? And why is Pete Carmichael pulling himself out as offensive coordinator? Don't know what he's going to do, but according to Jeff Duncan, he is talking about coming out of no longer being the offensive coordinator and going to another position on this staff. Why do you think Pete Carmichael is doing this? And secondly, what kind of coach you think the Saints should have as offensive coordinator?
wow. As far as the why, without personally knowing him, that's a really difficult question to answer. It could be that there's some kind of heat between he and Allen. That's something that we'll never know.
Right.
It could be that I don't know. Maybe he thinks that the job will be too hard with a new head coach, which I doubt that because that's just not Carmichael. But
I guess I feel like I was disappointed that Carmichael's doing this if this is going to happen because I thought this was Carmichael's opportunity to step out of Sean Payton's shadow.
yes,
And
absolutely.
maybe Carmichael is saying, you know what, I don't want to have to call the plays. I don't want to be responsible for this offense. I want Dennis to design his own offense. This can't be Sean Payton light, So to me, that's what I think may be going on with this. Develop your own identity. We can't. Yes, we're going to continue the culture that Sean Payton has built on this team, but maybe he's saying, you know what, you need to develop your own identity. And in the press conference, I didn't get to watch the whole thing because I was working, but I did get to see some of the highlights. One of the things that Allen said was they were going to be a physical team, a tough physical team. So what does that mean? I think that's where we go into the second part of this question that I was going to ask you. What kind of offensive coordinator do you think they're going to be looking for then?
I I have no idea. Literally no idea.
Okay.
Uh, it. I mean, it. Do you want someone that is established, or do you want to give someone a break and
Mhm.
establish them yourself? I don't
Well,
know.
some people think that this would be an excellent opportunity for Eric Bieniemy to come in and establish his own identity separate from Andy Reid, um, with this staff and this team to really show that it was him that was the mastermind behind that offense in Kansas City. Um, I don't know if
Yeah,
that'll
but
work.
the appeal of that for Bieniemy, I mean, the appeal of that could be a little bit tainted because of the quarterback situation that we have. Obviously, we don't have
Sure,
Patrick Mahomes.
sure.
I still believe that both Bieniemy and Leftwich are content to stay in their present situation and be the next head coach where they are, because there's no guarantee how long those two guys are going to continue coaching.
I I I I do think that Bruce Arians. I don't think he's going to retire this year. I think if he was going to, he would have announced it. He would have made that announcement already because it's not fair at this point where all the coaches are basically hired right now, um, to come out and say, well, you know what, I'm going to step aside too, and we're just going to appoint um, Leftwich as to be the new head coach. I think they may have had an internal conversation. He said, "This is my last go around. We'll see what this team does next year, and Byron, this is your team after this." Um,
I do believe that both of those guys have been made aware, like
yeah.
you're talking about,
hmm
of what the future holds for them at their present position.
So, to answer y'all's question, I don't know about what Pete Carmichael's idea is, other than I think he's probably, if he's going to keep a job with the staff, which they say he's going to, I think he does just become quarterback coach or offensive assistant or something to that effect. I could just see quarterback coach, honestly, because I think he's going to let Allen develop his own identity and not just be Sean Payton's, Sean Payton light. But I think this this team's identity will be determined by who Allen picks to be his offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I don't believe it'll be Bieniemy. I really don't, because first off, a lateral move the league doesn't allow. The Chiefs would have to let him go or let his contract expire, or the Saints would have to offer him a job that's really a promotion. So he would become like offensive coordinator / assistant head coach, which the Saints have done that before.
Yeah.
I think they did that with Ryan Nielsen to keep him around.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Um, so I think Allen's going to go find his own man. So much of this business is who you know. And I think Allen has his own contacts of the people he likes, people he knows,
Yeah.
and we'll bring those guys in.
Well,
Uh,
let me ask you this.
hmm
Considering how well the went, and he was not chosen for the head coaching job, do
hmm
you think Dennis Allen could bring in Aaron Glenn as his defensive coordinator?
I think it's entirely possible, very possible. But again,
Glenn has got to want to get out of Detroit.
Well, it's a lateral move, though. So again, you'd have to make him assistant head coach, defensive coordinator. And who's to say that he doesn't promote Ryan Nielsen or Chris Richard to be defensive coordinator as well?
True.
I mean, so those are two strong candidates as well. And people he's worked with for, well, for Nielsen the past 3 years. No, 4 years. I think it was 4 years. And for Richard, at least a year. So, they went out the way to say that Allen has full control over the staff. Don't assume everyone's going to keep their jobs. I think he does look to bring in his own guys to create his own identity. So I think who he picks as offensive coordinator is the most important decision he's going to make before the draft. And then his second most important decision he's going to make is who is going to be his quarterback. I think those two, I think the offensive coordinator is first, because who your offensive coordinator is determines who your quarterback is going to be.
Yes.
And who your quarterback is going to be is going to drive your draft. If we bring back Jameis Winston, what does Winston do well? Winston's strongest routes, unfortunately, are the go routes and the seam routes, where he goes straight down the field. He's not, I thought he was weakest throwing the out routes, the curls, the sideline, the rail routes, the sideline routes. Granted, he's throwing to garbage receivers for the most part, but I thought those were routes that he wasn't very accurate on. I thought he was most accurate throwing those seam and go routes. That's what he liked to do. So if he becomes your quarterback, you probably are going to be a vertical team as opposed to what the Saints were over the past 4 years, a horizontal team.
Yeah.
So, that's an issue. If he goes elsewhere for a quarterback, and let's discount Russ and Rodgers, because you bring those guys in, you're trying to make a Super Bowl run. Okay.
Yeah.
So you bring in a Garoppolo, for example. A Garoppolo, that's not his strength, is the go routes and the vertical routes.
No.
His strength is the horizontal offense. So
the thing I saw him do best was get the ball to Deebo Samuel.
well, yeah, and handoff, run the ball. But I'm saying from the standpoint of where his strength is, the tight end, the arrow routes, the little quick slants, those kind of things, that's what Garoppolo likes to do. Not pushing the ball down the field because his ball hangs in the air too long. Okay?
After the Rams.
Yeah. I said it already. I thought the play calling sucked for the Rams. I thought once again Shanahan got too cute for himself, and in the second half, and instead of just running the ball and running Deebo Samuel and just controlling the ball with short passes to Kittle and all the rest, he tried to get cute, and as a result, he lost the game. So again, that's the kind of stuff that's the kind of stuff that you have to I agree. I think Jimmy G, actually, I wouldn't give a second. I probably would give him a fourth for Jimmy G. That could become a higher draft pick if he hit, I said this already, if he hits certain milestones. And my milestones are you get to the playoffs, you throw for over 4,000 yards, you start 16 games. You got to hit these things for me to give a high draft pick for that.
Let me ask you this then. If you're running the 49ers organization, this guy just took you to the NFC Championship and was a field goal away from winning it. Do you pull him still and put your new toy in?
You invested a first-round draft pick in him.
That would have been my answer too.
Yeah,
You don't draft a first round pick to sit on the bench.
you can't afford to sit him for a couple of years. Yeah, I read your thing, Matt. I read it. Matthew wrote a thing on receivers. Um, so uh, yeah, at worst, they put feelers out for because here's the thing too. The longer Jimmy G stays on that team, the lower his value goes. He's probably at his peak value right now, getting to the championship game. But
Yeah,
if he stays out there, if they try and hold on to him for another year, chances are he only plays 10 games or less. And you start Trey Lance, and now Lance is going to be a starter. His value drops even more as far as draft choice options to trade him. So, I think they're moving him this year. But it's just a question of how desperate teams are to pay the 49ers what they think he's worth. And I don't think he's worth any more than a fourth round pick.
well,
That could turn into a third or even a second, and by a second, he's got to hit all Pro Bowl level kind of stuff
yeah.
and stay healthy for 16 games. I mean, that's the number one thing. You got to stay healthy. But
I've never been convinced on Garoppolo, even when he was in New England and coming to San Francisco. He stays hurt too much.
mm-hmm.
He crumbles under intense pressure.
I don't know if he crumbles so much as he has these. How do they describe it? It's when you're playing Madden, okay, and you're looking at your receiver, and X is obviously double covered. You mentally say to yourself, I'm throwing to the triangle, and you hit the X anyway because you're looking at the X, and you throw an interception. You have this brain fart moment like, why the hell did I just throw that ball? And I think Garoppolo has those at least once a game. And that's what people get frustrated with. His record, his completion percentage, his touchdown and interception ratio is all very good.
Yeah.
But he has these moments where you look at it and you go, what the hell why did I throw that ball? And that coupled with the injury factor is why they want to move on from him. And, Garoppolo is the kind of guy that you bring in when you draft another quarterback that you're grooming to take his place. He is your transitional quarterback. And again, that would be the signal. If you make a move for a guy like that, he's your transitional guy. He's not your guy, So, that, and we could pick all these quarterbacks to death. If you go with, I don't know, all right, let's throw a wild card in there. I know, and I can just see people freaking out if I mention this person's name. But let's just say the Cleveland Browns decide, you know what, we can't win with Baker Mayfield. Yeah, we can't win with Baker Mayfield. He's too inconsistent, too wild. And this is my other thing, because we don't have Sean anymore. I'm very hesitant to bring some of these other quarterbacks in. Garoppolo, I would have felt better with Sean as head coach.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's another one. I think you bring Baker Mayfield in here because you're thinking, oh, I get his rookie contract at least for a year. Are you going to make that investment in this guy? And are you going to have an offense that you can build around him? I don't know. I would be now that Sean is gone, I'm very hesitant to bring one of those kind of guys in.
I would take Baker Mayfield before I took Jimmy Garoppolo.
But at this point, that's what I'm saying. Who your offensive coordinator is and who your offensive staff is going to shape on what kind of quarterback you're going to get, because you're not going to be running the Sean Payton offense. You're not going to have Sean in there designing an offense and building around the strength of these quarterbacks. You've got Dennis Allen and now his staff. What kind of system are you going to run with this? So it just 22 million reasons why you can't do him. Maybe next year you could. I don't know if you can get a first round pick. He's got to light it up. He's got to light it up to send. He's got to get back to nearly 100%. He has to have almost a Cooper Cup kind of year to go to the Jets for a first round pick.
And there again, that all is going to revolve around who you have at quarterback.
Yep, exactly.
That's why it's such an important decision and priority.
Sure, absolutely. Did you watch any of either the Senior Bowl or the Pro Bowl?
I watched until Alvin Kamara made his first catch, and he stiff armed a guy, and they called him down. I said, "Shit on this."
I haven't watched the Pro Bowl.
When did the Pro Bowl become two-hand touch?
What year was it? What was the last year of the fantasy football Pro Bowl? Was that 2014?
Somewhere along in there.
2013.
And I hated that too.
I think that's when it became really two-hand touch football. Was 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, because that's when even Roger Goodell complained about it. And I don't know when it changed. I want to say it changed, I think, when it stopped, when they moved it from the week after the Super Bowl to the week between the Super Bowl, between the playoffs, divisional round, and the NFC Championship game and the Pro Bowl, the Super Bowl. I think that's when it started to change because, I grew. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, he sure did. He stiffed on him right by in front of the elevator. Yeah, Calvin's just trying to hoard picks here. If you can't trade time with Sean Payton would look good coaching the Jets for their first round pick. Well, they got to fire Sala first, so I don't know if they're willing to do that yet. But I think
I don't want Payton coaching anywhere else.
Well, I believe if he coaches anywhere else, I think he ends up in Los Angeles with the Chargers. I don't think he comes back to the NFC. I think he goes to the AFC because he's not going to want to have. He's not going to want to face the Saints. Not because he's afraid of the Saints. I think he just
respect.
It's too much respect for the organization and Mrs. Benson and the team and the fans. But I don't know if he does come back. I think it depends on his television gig. He has to get in television first. And I think if he feels like he's getting the fire, he's getting the enjoyment of coaching but still not controlling his life, I think that's, that would be his thing of saying, okay, I don't need to coach anymore. But if he doesn't get that fire, that feeling he gets of coaching, because he's bored in the studio or doing games, then he goes back. But I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, they don't treat it. It's because the players don't treat it as an honor, and I think it's because the teams that are playing in the Super Bowl aren't in the Pro Bowl. That's one of them.
It doesn't mean anything.
But
like the Major League Baseball, the All-Star game, it means something. The team that wins gets home field advantage in the World Series. The Pro Bowl doesn't mean anything.
Well, but it's baseball's best of 7, so you get the league gets the best, whether it's American or National League, gets the home field advantage. But I think for the Pro Bowl, I think what's happened is, because of free agency, it becomes such a social event that, oh yeah, we're supposed to play football. Let's, we're all pals, and there's no intensity to it anymore that they used to be in this, even as late as the early 90s. I shared a video from NFL Films Lost Treasures where Gino Cappelletti who was a Baltimore Colts defensive lineman, um, in the NFL championship game, because this is before the merger, the NFL championship game, he felt the Cleveland Browns ran up the score on the Baltimore Colts in the championship game, and Marchetti was like, "You don't do that, and I'm going to make you pay." And he hit Frank Ryan so hard, Dr. Frank Ryan's kind of stumbling around, lost and confused. I'm going to get you. You're going to pay for it. And they carry these grudges over because they were loyal to their team. The helmet logo, the jersey was there. Well, they weren't wearing their jerseys. They were wearing, Eastern or Western Conference jerseys, because that's how the NFL was back then. But they were wearing their Pro Bowl jerseys, but he said, "No, though, I'm a Baltimore Colt first and an NFL player second." And Dr. Frank Ryan was a Cleveland Brown quarterback first, an NFL player second, so he was going to make him pay for that. And I think that aspect has been lost because
there's no loyalty.
Well, no, because you got guys recruiting guys for their team and stuff like that in these Pro Bowls. So, I think I know the fantasy stuff didn't go well, but it's almost like instead of the Pro Bowl, I want the All Pro teams. I want All Pro first team versus All Pro second team to play in a Pro Bowl, and you take the fans' votes out of it. You play the game the week after the Super Bowl, and you include those players from the Super Bowl, and you do make it worth something. I don't know what it would take. What do you think it would take to make those players care? It's not just money. What would it take to make those players care about that game?
Oh, that's a hard one. Well, there again, you could do it like baseball. Whichever side wins, they get to be home team for the Super Bowl the next year.
Well, the hard part is, oh, look, Bob is back. Well, trying to come back.
I'm here.
Bob said, "Oh, Bob is doing the whole Smoky Man from X-Files. Where's my X-Files music? We're talking about the Pro Bowl, Bob. What would it take for you? What do you think it would take to make the Pro Bowl interesting again?"
Goodell to be fired and put in jail.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of really any of the major sports all-star games. I used to watch the Pro Bowl. I have not watched a down of it since John Elway's last year. John Elway's last pass was technically in the Pro Bowl on a tackle eligible to Junior Seau in 1999. Since then it's nothing but a joke to me, right down to the selection process. So many fantastic players get blatantly overlooked every year. And that's taking money out of those guys' pockets. I realize you're talking about millionaires, and most of those guys aren't hurting for a meal or anything like that. But what's fair is fair. But at the same time, you're talking about a contact sport. So I don't know that you can make the Pro Bowl a legitimately watchable football game. I think what they could do, if I was in charge, and by the way, I'd be better than Goodell, certainly far less corrupt. But if I was in charge, I would make it a flag football game, like you see with the old timers when they get together. The kind of events that I mean. Promote a flag football game and have a skills competition. I love the fastest man, competition. I love the quarterback competition. Make it stuff like that. Make for offensive and defensive linemen, make it like a strongman competition. Something where the bodies aren't taking the beating, that they would during a normal football game.
those are great ideas because I miss the old NFL skills competition. They used to run that. They do it around the Pro Bowl time, then they'd show it like in March.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be way after.
It'd be an ABC Wide World of Sports event, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, pretty much. And I said that I would enjoy seeing the All Pros instead of the Pro Bowl. If you can get named to the All Pro team, that's your Pro Bowl roster.
Yeah.
And your All Pro first and second teams, and maybe have the first and second teams play each other. But I haven't watched the Pro Bowl. Probably, I think the last one I watched, and I only watched a segment of it, was Drew Brees' first year in the Pro Bowl. I think in 2006, and I think he got hurt in that game. He hurt his forearm in that game, and people were freaking out.
I remember that.
Yeah, because he had gotten hurt. And I think before that game, the last Pro Bowl I think I watched was probably 92 when all four of the Saints linebackers went to the Pro Bowl and played for the Dome Patrol. I watched that to see all four of them out there. But and I might have watched 2000. I don't remember much of the 2000 Pro Bowl, but I think that's the only other one I ever watched.
I think the last one that I watched was when Drew Brees' three boys got in a fight on the sidelines.
Oh, yes. I do
during his interview.
I do remember that. Yeah, because he kept going on the field. And Brees says, yeah, after this interview, we're all going to have a talk in a few minutes. I'm like, yeah, I had a few talks like that with my dad. They never went well.
No, they were not happy endings.
No. This was not Chinese massage parlor. This was not a good happy ending. This was a bad happy ending.
It usually involved hearing leather pop out of Wrangler belt loops.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, I really don't know how you can make the game exciting because it's up to the players to increase the intensity.
Yeah.
And the players have decided not to have an intense game.
No,
And
you need a Sean Taylor.
Well, yeah, I saw that play. They re-showed that. Well, Bob, before you came back on, I was talking about in the 60s Pro Bowl, Gino Marchetti got upset because he felt in the NFC Championship game or NFL Championship game that the Cleveland Browns ran up the score on the Baltimore Colts. And he told, Dr. Frank Ryan, who was a quarterback for the Browns, hey, man, you don't do that to us. And I'm going to get you for this. And the next game they played was the Pro Bowl, and he got him. He hit him so hard you could see him stumbling around. And this is in NFL Films Lost Treasures, talking about the beginning of NFL Films. And he was talking about how they didn't use much of the Pro Bowl footage at all because the uniforms didn't match, the numbers weren't right, they didn't have names in the back then. So it was some guy in either a blue or a red uniform, and you know who he was. Unless someone told you who he was, or you got to see his face. So they didn't use very much of this. So you had all this great footage in what they called the outs that they didn't use. So that was a great series, the NFL Films Lost Treasure.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a few of them on DVD. There's a lot of them on, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson hit somebody in the Pro Bowl. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to mention something in a minute here with Calvin about this. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, that would be the one guy I could see get into a fist fight in Vegas. I did not see Alvin Kamara do that.
Yeah.
I could see Chauncey Gardner-Johnson fighting somebody. Of course, somebody would take the swing at him first.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing before we go. And I do have one question for you too, Calvin, Bob. Calvin's question here. Do you guys remember it happened until 1975? The college all-stars would play the Super Bowl champion team from the NFL. And the last game was the 75 Steelers versus the college all-stars, and Randy White as a college player sacked Terry Bradshaw, and the Steelers offense did not like the fact that he touched him.
Yep.
And it was in a rainstorm, it's a monsoon. It's on YouTube. You can see the footage of this. And they stopped doing it after 75 because, these players are getting bigger and faster, and college guys, these were all first-round draft picks. These were all the equivalent of, the best of the best college players playing a physical football game versus the defending or the Super Bowl champion. Can you imagine what that would be like today?
It would probably be a lot more competitive today than it was then.
It was pretty competitive then, too.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some games the college all-stars won.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you think would happen if they did that today?
It'd be interesting. I'd watch that. But realistically, and for all the reasons that it would take the rest of the night to list, we'll never see anything like that.
No.
But I do think that it would make for good TV because you would see, just like I'm sure you did then, you would see college players desperate to prove themselves to scouts, and you would see a Super Bowl champion team, an NFL team. It could be any NFL team. They're desperate to prove that we're better than these college guys. We're getting paid to do this. We want to continue to get paid to do this. So we want to put the youngsters in their place.
I mean, let's just use last year's season. Can you imagine, Tampa Bay's Super Bowl team with Tom Brady playing against, I don't know, a team that's made up mainly of Alabama players or LSU players and so forth. The joke always has been Alabama could beat most NFL teams.
Right.
Or this year, Georgia could beat most NFL teams. Can you imagine? Let's go to the 2019 LSU team. Joe Burrow with those weapons and Joe Brady calling the plays going up against Kansas City. What that game would have been like. That would have been a hell of a game. That would have been a hell of a game to see.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously NFL players, year-round conditioning, much better coaching, much, they're older, much more mature. But, yeah, you could see Alabama, LSU players really giving it all it's got. So,
I think it would be a lot like the Pro Bowl now. The NFL players wouldn't take it seriously.
Well, until they start beating them. Can
Right.
you imagine the pride? You're getting beat by a bunch of college kids. You call yourselves professionals. So the other option that people had, and this ties in with what you're saying, make this game worthwhile. Instead of the Pro Bowl, you just have an all-pro listing. But the last game of the year is the two worst teams in football play each other, and the winner gets the number one draft pick.
I like that.
Yeah.
So you'd have Jacksonville versus who's the number two? The Jets?
Detroit or the Jets, one of the two.
Yeah, Detroit or the Jets. Yeah, okay. So yeah. Imagine those two teams playing each other. That's the final game of the season, and they're playing for the number one draft pick. That gives them an incentive to play well. It would probably be the equivalent of a pillow fight, but it would be worth watching. It would make something interesting. So, and then the third option, of course, is have Georgia play Jacksonville and see who wins, and really set people off.
Yeah.
I think the problem you would have with playing that kind of game is, fortunately, Black Monday happens the day after the season ends. So, the coaching staff's gone. Yeah, it would be hard to who coaches this team.
Exactly.
Jacksonville just hired their coach. Who would be running that team? So that would be hard. Yeah, Friday night pillow fights. Yeah. That's just options that you'd have instead of having to watch the Pro Bowl. But the two worst teams would be worth watching. Now, some people had said, and I do have a question for you, Bob. But some people said, what if you have, instead of the Super Bowl, you have the almost Super Bowl? You have the two teams that lost the NFC Championship and AFC Championship game play each other the week after, or the week before the Super Bowl, the week between the Super Bowl. You know, you'd have the in this case it had been the Chiefs against the 49ers, and you get to compare which game was better. That would be an interesting way to upgrade that.
It would. You'd have to throw some sort of incentive in there, other
Mhm.
than an extra game check. But if you could find the right kind of incentive, uh, you could see that kind of thing working. Because you remember back in the old NCAA basketball, Final Four days, the losers, the two losers of the semifinal games would play
Mhm.
each other as kind of a prequel to the championship. And a
Yeah.
lot of years, those games were actually more entertaining and more heavily contested than the championship game itself.
I mean, let's just go back to 2006. The Saints make their first NFC Championship game. Well, first off, back it up, 2018. Can you imagine in 2018 the Saints 2018 team gets to play the week before the Super Bowl against who was it that was in the AFC? That was New
Chiefs.
England and Chiefs. Okay, so
Yeah.
you got the Super Bowl you wanted, that a lot of people wanted.
Mhm.
That would be interesting ratings wise too.
Yeah.
Everybody's watching that game. Nobody's watching the Patriots and the Rams. That would have been fun. That would have been great. Oh, and the winner gets a compensatory first round pick.
There you go.
Oh
There you
man,
go.
that would be exciting. That would be exciting. That would make it worthwhile. That would be a hell of a lot better than than what you would see in the Pro Bowl.
Mhm.
Okay, Bob. So the question I wanted to ask you, because Sean and I talked about this while you were off with Cat Chronicles, the most important hires or the most important decisions that Dennis Allen has to make is offensive coordinator and quarterback, and we both agree that the offensive coordinator would pretty much determine what kind of quarterback they're going to go for. Would you agree with that? And who can you see this Dennis Allen going for as offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. Because you need the quarterback to be the face of your franchise.
Mhm.
Even though there are plenty of faces of the franchise in this locker room already, it's such a quarterback-driven league. You just look at the playoff teams, and that answers your inquiry right there.
Mhm.
I think Dennis Allen, as we talked about before we came on air earlier this evening, I don't believe that you'll see a whole lot of changes made on the defensive staff. Allen's a defensive guy. I mean, obviously, you're going to see somebody promoted to coordinator. Probably Richard or Ryan Nielsen. Although keep an eye out for Aaron Glenn if you're looking for a surprise. But Aaron Glenn would be like an in-house hire.
Mhm.
Offensively, I expect a lot of shuffling and changes in that offensive coaching staff. And I think the offensive coordinator is ultimately going to be someone with a good amount of NFL experience. Even if it's not as a head coach, then it's going to be many years as a coordinator. The name we're hearing thrown around a lot is Greg Olsen, because he was the Vegas coordinator up until the Johnson McDaniels hire, and he was also the Raiders offensive coordinator when Allen was in Oakland to begin with.
And we're not talking about the tight end. We're talking about the
Correct.
coach.
Correct.
Yeah.
Another name to keep an eye on is Eric Bieniemy, and I know that's swinging for the fences, but the Saints interviewed him for 8 hours, as we all know from Saints social media. Why would they do that? If they're not going to hire him, well, that's why. You figure Bieniemy has been working under Andy Reid, and Andy Reid it calls the majority of the plays. So this is a chance for Bieniemy to get out from under Reed's shadow. You would have to throw a title, a bunch of money at Bieniemy, a title upgrade. Otherwise, it's just not going to work in the NFL because Bieniemy is under contract and the Chiefs aren't going to release him easily. But Bieniemy, whoever the offensive coordinator is, will be in complete control of this offense because Dennis Allen, as we all know, is a defensive guy. So this is a real opportunity for Bieniemy to take that next step in his career. It might look on the surface like a lateral move, but he can bring in his own quarterback, especially if it opens you up for an opportunity to get a Russell Wilson or develop a Jameis Winston. Imagine what that's going to do for Bieniemy's job status going forward. And another guy that I like is Joe Lombardi, too. Another Saints guy. He does have a good relationship with Dennis Allen. And again, Lombardi has Justin Herbert, I realize. But again, if the Saints you tell a guy like Bieniemy or Joe Lombardi, we're really going to try to make a splash move and do what we can to get a Russell Wilson or draft a quarterback in the first round, which I think is the least likely scenario. But you can draft a guy. You can have your next Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or whatever. That's going to be an attractive opportunity for a guy like Bieniemy or Lombardi, and another guy I like with a lot of NFL experience. That's already told the University of Alabama he's not going to be back because he expects to be in the NFL. Doug Marrone. So I think it's going to be one of those guys, but I think it's going to be ultimately the offensive coordinator is going to be a guy with years of NFL experience.
I forgot about Lombardi being I knew he was with Detroit. I forgot about Lombardi being a possibility as an offensive coordinator. One of the things I was saying earlier was that Dennis Allen had stressed that we're going to be a physical team. That's the kind of team we're going to be. I think Lombardi gives them that. I like that idea a lot. I had said, and I think you might agree with this, that obviously Lombardi is going to, or not Lombardi, but whoever the offensive coordinator is going to determine what kind of quarterback you go get.
Yes.
Because if you build your team around a physical game, a running game, you may only want a game manager at quarterback instead of a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers or some of the bigger name quarterbacks. Maybe you go get a and I'm gonna throw names out. That doesn't mean we're gonna get them, but a Kirk Cousins if the Vikings part ways with him, or a Garoppolo, someone like that. And we talked about earlier that a guy like Jameis Winston, he likes a more vertical game.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go with a Bieniemy, you probably are going to you need a quarterback who pushes the ball down the field. Whereas with a Garoppolo, you probably want a more horizontal game. So yeah, those are all things I'm thinking about. But yeah, now I'm going to be thinking about Joe Lombardi because he would be an interesting offensive coordinator, because I thought Detroit, despite all the losing, I thought Detroit played hard. They made good decisions. They just they don't have the talent to win.
No.
And that's why they lost so many games late.
And Lombardi did a heck of a job the last 2 years. When he left New Orleans again and got the OC job with the Chargers.
Yes. Thank you. I forgot. I'm thinking about Detroit. A few years ago, he coached that 1 year. I see Sean scowling at me, but yeah, you're right. You're right. I forgot he went to the Chargers.
The narrative still fits. When Lombardi was in Detroit, they played hard. They played good offensive football, and Matt Stafford put up some wonderful numbers.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I get to play this.
Lombard. A certain magic still lingers in the very name.
Can you even hear this?
Yes.
It speaks of duels in the snow and cold November month. I mean, every time I hear the name Lombardi, and he is the grandson of Vince Lombardi, but I hear Lombardi, and I immediately that music is called Wild Bunch from Sam Spence. That music starts up, and I picture Lambeau Field covered in snow, and then you see the famous shot of um, um, I cannot believe I forgot his name, number 5,
Horning.
Paul Horning running the sweep,
Mhm.
you know, with Fuzzy Thurston and Jerry Kramer pulling in front, in for a touchdown against the Browns. So anyway, yeah. So I would enjoy having Lombardi back on the staff because I always liked seeing Joe Lombardi, and I would enjoy seeing him calling the plays. But yeah, I mean, and again, Lombardi showed flexibility.
Yeah.
He showed a great passing game. Justin Herbert clearly is probably one of the best quarterbacks who did not make the playoffs this year, mainly because his head coach is an idiot.
Yes.
But I mean, again, I'm going to the future again. That's why I feel like if anybody, if any team intrigues Sean Payton to come back and coach, I
Mhm.
think it's the Chargers because he's got a Drew Brees like quarterback in Justin Herbert. He's got an offensive system making you wide open, and the Chargers haven't won anything probably since they went to the Super Bowl in '95.
Nope.
I mean, even when they had Marty Schottenheimer, they didn't win. They didn't win at all. Yeah. And yeah, that's a team you could put on the map again because I'm sorry, you go to a Chargers game, like the Rams games are bad. Chargers games, you hear tons of fans more than you hear Chargers fans because there is no loyalty to that. Yeah, Chargers is Brees with a damn cannon. Yeah, I mean Herbert is a Brees with a damn cannon. Yeah, he is. And I admit I was completely wrong about Herbert.
Same.
I did not think he would because he went to Baylor. You're like that's hardly a football powerhouse, but he proved to me otherwise. Yeah, you're right. Steam coming off of someone's head. I always think of Chris Zordich. He was bald and he took his helmet off. You can see that steam coming off his head. So yeah. Um, anyway, I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I think that hire, who he hires as a head coach, determines what the Saints do in
Yep.
free agency at quarterback.
Yep.
I'm with you. I think they need to have a veteran quarterback lead this team, even if it's a transitional guy while you wait to draft somebody. But you still need to have a veteran quarterback to lead this team that can do more. But your offensive coordinator is going to determine what that guy has got to be like, what kind of quarterback you need to do that. So, anyway, thank you guys for sticking with us. I did stretch this out a little bit because I was hoping Bob would come back because I really wanted his thoughts on that stuff. Bob's written some great pieces on grading the Saints team, the 2021 team. The latest one was the offensive line, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I will have what the hell am I working? I will have linebackers out tomorrow morning, and then I'll finish it out with defensive ends, the draft class, the rookies. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do a grade piece on the coaching staff yet, because of everything that's happened. But yeah, linebackers will be tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, and that's when all the good grades come out. He had all the bad grades earlier. The good grades come out starting tomorrow. And somebody wants you guys to think about who was the Saints Rookie of the Year. I think it's pretty obvious, but I still want to hear your thoughts. Who you think the Saints Rookie of the Year was, and who would you put as the Saints' most valuable player for next time?
I can tell you mine.
Oh, okay. Who was your most valuable player?
The punter.
Okay, that's a good one. No,
I think that there's a very fair argument to be made for that. I really do. I'm not just trying to make a joke, but
I was disappointed he did not make the Pro Bowl. I understand why he didn't. Because kind of like with Morstead, it's not that he was lacking opportunity, but he was punting from so deep in his territory that he wasn't pinning enough teams and wasn't getting that big yards per punt average. But he did a hell of a job dropping those punts where they needed to be. and they were booming punts. So yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we'll talk about those are two things we can talk about for the next time. Barring anyone else getting into a fist fight, anyone else getting arrested, somebody showing up with a gun charge, somebody passed out, falling asleep on Earhart, we'll see. Hey, Carnival's coming up too. So who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.